Hey guys, it's Kate. I received a request to review different types of shoulder rests. Shoulder rests are actually one of the few things on a violin that are completely your choice and really don't have any effect on how you sound. It's basically just how you feel and what feels best for you. So with that being said, I am actually just going to say my opinion and then throw the question out to all of you. I've posed 2 other video questions out to you, aside from this one. What was your favorite rosin, and what's your favorite string type? So if you haven't given input on those, I would really appreciate it. And this is what I personally think. Now, there are about 3 different types of categories for shoulder rests. There's your typical sponge rest. There's your, along with the sponge rests, under the subcategory would be the red circular cosmetics pads, and what all those have in common, as well as the ones that look like bags, and then like a big thing of air that just stick on with your violin. What they all have in common is that they are attached through a rubber band. Now, the second type of shoulder rest is a non-existent shoulder rest. Some people don't play with shoulder rests. Actually, up until the 1900s, they really didn't play with shoulder rests. They played with just chin rests, and even before that, they didn't even play with chin rests or shoulder rests. Therefore, they were like sliding all over the place, and they probably had really bad bruises on the side of their neck. Anyway, the last and final type are probably the most famous, these types of shoulder rests, and those are the ones that I'm going to review. Now, on a side note, the sponge rests, they are given to young kids when they are first learning, mostly in Suzuki, just because they're easy. And then they're sort of graduated off, and then they're reintroduced as your level progresses. A really big sign that you do have control of the violin and you're not relying on a lot of stuff is when you can completely play with just a sponge on and completely have beautiful vibrato without the support of one of these guys. So if you see a lot of older professionals playing like this, don't be alarmed or anything. They just are at a great level where they really don't need any support here. But for the most of us, we do need some support. Now, I have 3 different styles of these type shoulder rests that I'm going to share with you, because I definitely have had a lot of trouble with finding the perfect shoulder rest, and with a shoulder rest comes, your back and stuff like that. So if you don't have a good shoulder rest, it can lead to back issues and stuff like that with your posture. Alright, now I'm not really supposed to give names, but when I am doing a review I do give names, but I will not completely recommend a specific brand. The first one is the Wolf Forte Secondo. It's made in the Netherlands. It looks like this, and it's got a pretty thick sponge going on. That's my first one, which is the Wolf Forte Secondo. The second one is called a Bond Musica. It's very interesting. It actually is flexible, and it bends according to how much you want it, and it fits like this. And the last one is actually a brand that not many have heard of. It's called the Viva Shoulder Rest. They actually are pretty neat because they come in colors. I've got a purple one, a blue one, and I even have an orange one. So they're actually pretty stylish. Now, the one that I use right now, as many of you seen in my videos, varies between the Viva and the Wolf Forte Secondo. Now, the thing that I didn't like about the Bond Musica one, I know it's really flexible and stuff like that, but the grips were really not very grippy, if that makes sense. They, when you played with them, I would stand up and it would fall off my instrument. And I was on stage for a performance once, and the shoulder rest let go. So I really kind of got afraid of them. After you have a bad experience with something, you don't go back to it. So I really didn't like it, and I also didn't like how much I relied on the chin rest when I played with this. So I didn't really like this. Going back to the sponge issue, I didn't like the sponge because I felt like when I played with the sponge, my vibrato got really weak, and I was gripping with my teeth a lot, like when I was playing like this. So I really didn't like the sponge either. Now for these 2, they are pretty much the Wolf and this, they're pretty much interchangeable, except for the fact that the height is a lot more adjustable on the Viva. That's another thing. Depending on your preference, you can adjust the height, and that's another thing that's very important. If you really don't know about shoulder rest, you really need to play around with it and get, the angle, which is another advantage of the Viva one. You can adjust it based on the angle to fit however you like it. And you can also adjust the height. And for the Wolf, what I like about it is that the padding is very thick, and so it's very comfortable, so when you're playing on the string, it cushions you and it doesn't hurt you. I know for a lot of girls that have a very thin bone structure, or they don't have a lot of flesh on their body, like me, it's very hard to have something really tough pushing against your bone, your collarbone, so this provided a lot of padding for me. For now, for the person that requested this, I probably would recommend the Viva and the Forte Secundo. You can get them from any music store, music catalog, or even online now. And I also want to know what you guys think. What's your favorite one? And also, on a side note, this Viva is not like a Coon. A Coon is probably the most famous type of shoulder rest. I do not recommend them because the sponge is so stiff that it just really leads to pressure and gripping.